And good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the OSR Tabletop with myself, Game Master Bloodworth. Sorry, I was just getting a fresh bottle of water ready for this. And tonight I wanted to talk about, and this is going to be an open forum, so anyone is welcome to come into the conversation. But tonight I wanted to talk about fixing the Vancian Magic system that is was really part of the foundational game mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons, both in its earliest forms as well as going much later on into its most recent editions as well. And if you're not familiar with the Vancian Magic system, basically it is having a number of spell slots open to the caster, whether it be a magic user or a cleric or a druid or an illusionist, and those spell slots increase as the player character increases in level, and that unlocks different higher levels of spell casting, so spell levels. So you have both spell levels, and then you have the number of spells that they can cast within those spell levels based on the level of the character. And I'll show you, briefly a chart to show the magic user, to begin with. So let me go to magic user very, very quickly here. And I will go to here. So magic users are called wizards in Castles and Crusades. And this is really spurred up, upon me from Castles and Crusades, my current campaign. And so I will show you that this actually shows a good distribution anyway. So let me share this screen with you, and I will check the chat, see if anyone's in chat yet. And again, you're welcome to join in, and that'll be the first thing I put here as a post. So you are welcome to join in on this. And so anyway, let me share, and let's share screen, and I want to do this one here. Okay, so here you can see this is what I'm talking about. So wizard spells per day. So at first level they get 4 0-level spells and 2 second-level spells. And that goes up progressively as they're going higher and higher in level, to the point that ultimately they get to level 24, and they will obviously have 8-0, 8 first, 7 and 7 of second and third, 6 and 6 of third, fourth and fifth. I went off track there, but it'll be 5 at 6. 5 at 7, 4 at 8, and 4 at 9. All right, now there are bonuses. So if they have an intelligence of 13 to 15, they can memorize 1 extra first level spell. If it's a 16 or 17, they can memorize an extra second level spell, and an 18 or 19, an extra third level spell. So let's say we have a first level wizard with an 18 intelligence, right? So very, very intelligent. That character is going to have 4 0-level spells, and 3 first-level spells. All right, so that's the Vancian magic system, right? So this is again based on the writings of Jack Vance. Gary Gygax had developed this system of this is how spellcasters gain their spells, and once they've cast the spell for the day, they do not recover that spell again until the following day after a sustained rest of at least 6 hours, sustained rest. And that's the way the system was designed. So, what I ran into was the issue of a first level or a low level character, spellcasting character would potentially burn through their spellcasting fairly early on in a game session, just based on the number of situations in which their spellcaster would be casting spells. And I've been going back and forth and trying to find the correct balance of player character usefulness. I've both experienced as a player as well as watched as a game master. For spellcasting players going through those spells very quickly and then feeling like, well, I have nothing, nothing to contribute other than to break out my sling and stone if I want to, at least have some opportunity to have some impact on the adventuring or the combat going forward, or at worst, just standing back and not engaging in anything beyond having cast those first initial spells. I've had situations where a player character will hold on to those spells because each and every one of them is so precious that it's like, no, I'm going to wait until the very last, ditch effort to finally cast my spells for the day, and so I have that as well. So these are the issues that I've come across with the Vancian Magic system, is that players tend to either hold on to their spells very often, too long, or they burn through them and then have that sense of, well, I'm kind of done contributing to the action of what's going on. So let me get to some of your comments and introductions as well. Hey, Ducato, how's it going? Good to see you. I changed the fonts in here, but I may have to, switch to something different because those fonts are not big enough. Yeah, so I just changed that. They had a few little things here, so I'm definitely changing that font back over. So, hey, Ducato, how's it going? Bo Paints Minis. Hey, Bo, I much prefer requiring a player to choose spells before the session starts with blank slots. Yeah, and I do the same thing too. That's the other aspect of Vancian Magic that I find somewhat cumbersome, is the fact that they can only, they have to study their spells first and memorize their spells. And then these are the only, let's say, 3 spells that they will be able to cast as a first level. These are the only 3 spells that they can cast. And if they want to switch them up, I mean, sometimes there's different rules mechanics where, if they spend 15 minutes, they can unmemorize that spell and pick up a new spell, and it's 15 minutes per level. And so they can swap out a first level spell with 15 minutes of additional study, which requires them to have their travel magic users book with them, their spell book with them. I have a different system and always have for clerics. Clerics get their spell casting from their deity, and so they have the full selection of their level of spells that they can cast from, and they're simply praying to their deity for that particular spell. So they're not memorizing spells. At least I haven't done that in decades, where they have to pre-select their spells for clerics or priests or whatever the game system actually calls them. And I do the same thing for druids, because druids are drawing upon the natural world that they are in order to gain these things. So there is somewhat of an advantage of spell casting for those character classes that don't require memorization, or at least I don't require them to have memorization. I also give them additional spells based on their wisdom level rather than their intelligence level as well. So yeah, and even with the creation of their spell books, I give them more selection. Then I don't randomly generate their initial starting spell books for magic users or illusionists and whatnot. I let them, I let them choose at least two, or they'll choose as many as they have a plus modifier to their intelligence as well. Hey, Mike, how's it going? Good to see you. Anything to make the players think more? Yes, and I like to make them, calculate and think about, well, if I kind of have an anticipation of what I might be needing in this, then yeah, I might pick my spells a little bit more thoughtful behind them, instead of just going with the go-to. I'm going to always take a sleep spell. I'm always going to take a web spell for a higher level spell. I'm always going to take magic missile and never consider anything else. Even if I kind of anticipate my situation being differently, I don't want to break from those go-tos, and I like to change that up as well. So, Bo, you're saying, and I prefer magic. Rare and super powerful versus kitchen sink approach on most of D&D. Yeah, again, there's still a limitation. There isn't a whole lot of magic that they can draw upon. Yes, there are some, especially in later editions of D&D, there are some spells that are overpowered, and and that's something that pretty much prompted me to think about this topic, because in my own gaming situation, I had been messing around with taking Shadow Dark's system of having a spell target number that you can cast your spell as often as you're successful at it, but when you're unsuccessful, you lose it for the remainder of the session, and that's something that I was dabbling around with a little bit, and I ran into an issue where I was being a little bit too generous, and I was saying, well, spell failure doesn't mean that you can't recast the spell again, only like if it was a critical failure. And I think I did not modify that critical failure and make it a little bit more possible than if you were casting like a first level spell. Well, you only failed and lost the spell's use on a roll of a natural one, and I think that was a little bit too generous, in the fact that there was virtually little chance of them losing a first level spell, and they can just keep on repeatedly casting it. Now, that did get rid of the effect of a magic using player wanting to, wanting to just step out of interacting because he or she was completely out of spells, or wanting to go to sleep right away, even though they've effectively only been awake for a couple of hours in game time since their last night's sleep, and it's like, well, I've expended all my spells, so I want to go to sleep now. And I was forced to tell the player, no, you can't. You just woke up 2 hours ago. That's just not the way the system works. So there was a lot of contention with spell casting, and trying to strike that balance between letting them feel effective throughout an entire game session without having to rest or to hold on to their spell casting, and and the balance of not being overpowered and just being able to effectively cast the spell as often as they as often as they wanted to, and with very little risk of actually losing the spell for the remainder of the session. Let's see. I much prefer requiring a player to choose spells before the session starts with blank slot. Oh yeah, we got that already. Sorry. So let me get back to too much, and it's it's a crutch for players. Yeah, but the point is, and there is an argument to be made. Like someone will say, and players have said this before. A fighter doesn't have a limitation on how often he can swing a sword. So that is the fighter's role. A magic user's role shouldn't be so limited, especially at low level, of having no more spells to cast after they've cast 3 first level spells. And I mean, if we go to old school D&D, it's like clerics didn't even start with a spell at first level. So I think that and Mike goes into this too, and I think that this plays a certain role to it as well. I think to roll to cast bridges that gap with Vancian Magic, and yes, it does. And I think that Shadow Dark does it in a sense that if you don't hit that target number, you lose the spell for the remainder of the day. And the mistake I made was that I modified that even further, and I allowed the players, it had to be a critical fail in order to do that. And so that's certainly something that I would not change, because what I took was, I took that bridge and I made it even more generous. And that's something that I would probably need to change, because certain spells become very exploitable if you and including low-level spells become very exploitable if the player has a sense that I can maintain this spell almost from start to finish of a game session continuously. Case in point, invisibility, and just keeping the character invisible for until they actually made an attack roll throughout the entire session. So in combat, out of combat, as long as they're not casting an offensive spell, then they're the player just looked to remain invisible, and so takes random encounters and takes them off the plate for being seen, at least initially, at least being seen. And again, it creates, I created the issue of an exploit, and so it made me step back and start thinking about, well, how do I strike a better balance than what I had done? So not quite Vancian, and locked into the Vancian concept, and a little bit more closer to what Shadow Dark does. And maybe that was my mistake, was not just sticking straight up with Shadow Dark system and saying, well, as long as you don't fail your spell casting, then you can recast that spell again. And so that's something that I'm leaning towards, going forward. Let's see who else we have in here. Let's see. I think guess is the bridge. So, see, as a GM, DM keeper, I actually like that. If a player squanders any resource, that fault is that. Again, it's we get back to under the Vancian. If you're saying, like, if they squander that spell, so if they've cast that spell, they don't get, they may be going for the rest of the session without having any real capability for their class. And so again, I have a problem with that as well. And I can see that that's a problem. Let's see. We have been experimenting with roll to cast in my son's OSC campaign. So far, so good. Right. And I'm assuming, Ducato, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if they fail, they lost the spell for the remainder of the session. And if that's the case, that's certainly something that I'm going to lean on, and go to that. How is it different than the players wasting all of his arrows, water, or gold? It's different because your let's say your archer has run out of his 20 arrows. All right, let's say they were only carrying a score of arrows in their quiver. There are systems in place where they can gain their arrows back, by searching those that they fired, and you check to see if, how many are actually recoverable. They can strip arrows from the fallen. So let's say they happen to be, fighting opponents' bandits that also had arrows. Well, they can pick those up off of them as well. Squandering water is something that is, or gold, those are things that they can seek out in the wilderness and find that, or they can, take a side trek if they're running out of gold and everything. They go on an adventure. That's what the whole point of going on adventures is often for many, is to gain that kind of wealth. It's very common for player characters to squander their gold in between adventuring and such. And so, so those other ones, I see that there is a difference, though. You're not going to go out and, so readily find a spell scroll to give your magic user another breath of usefulness in combat. If you're making magic rare, then then it's going to be even less so a possibility. So there's a definite difference between the two. You could argue, I think a better argument would be is what if your fighter's sword breaks? That's not so readily replaceable. Again, unless you're fighting a group of bandits, and you can always replace one weapon for another. So I don't see that comparison that you're looking to make there. I don't think they're the same. Resper? I'm not sure what that. Not sure if that was a typo or not familiar with the word. I remember it being a big deal when 4E implemented cantrips, but I think SD's roll to cast system is a good compromise for Vancian Magic. Yeah, and I think it is too. But I think that okay, resource management is a big part of gaming. Well, yes, I agree that resource management is a big part of the game. And you're, as a game master, there's more opportunities to replace, like I said, arrows and or other, mundane melee weapons in the course of adventuring than there is to recoup magic. The system just isn't designed for recovering manage. It's a simple thing to say, learn to manage resources, but the point is that when you're dealing with Vancian magic and low-level spellcasters, you can literally go through all of their magic, properly using their resources. Like, they're not just blowing through their spells for no reason. Properly using their resources in a combat that takes place very early on in the game session. And now they're sitting there waiting waiting through 3 hours of gameplay, let's say, and no opportunity to replenish their character's primary role. And that's the problem with it. So it's not even managing your resources wisely. It's utilizing your character wisely, which might burn up spells very quickly. Yes, taking the rules from Shadow Dark, I think, is a good idea, and then just implementing them differently than what I did. I claim that mistake completely. I got too generous with it, and I was like, hey, you know what? You're only going to lose the use of the spell if you did a critical failure based on the spell level. So it was a rising critical failure. If you're casting a 6th level spell, then you would critically fail on a 5 and below. All right. So that was something that I implemented and kind of overcompensated. And I should have left it straight up the way that Shadow Dark has it, where no, if you fail your spell casting, then you no longer have the use of that spell any longer. The other thing that I did with the spell casting was under Shadow Dark too, and I do this in my Shadow Dark game as well, is that there is one 1st level spell that the player character can select as having advantage with. Usually for a cleric or a priest, it would be the 1st level Cure Light Wound spell, so they always roll that with advantage. And in some cases, that's actually written into the rules. For magic users, I let them utilize that as well. They can choose one spell that they always cast with advantage. And that was also in Shadow Rim, and that was built into Shadow Rim as well. But I'm starting to think of some other things that I've done to make that spell casting a little bit more common sense, if you will. Even though we're talking about magic, so like spells like read magic. I don't consider that a spell. I consider that a magic user's or illusionist's or even a cleric's, ability, an innate ability. All right. So at 1st level, at achieving 1st level, they can read magic. All right, without having to cast or use a spell slot or anything like that. All right, and they basically cannot fail. All right. If I were to implement that you have to make any kind of a roll, it's possibly rolling against being able to read a magic spell that is beyond your spell casting ability. Then maybe I'd have them make a roll. But otherwise, if they can cast that level spell, they're not even using a spell slot to do that. They're just doing read magic and they got it. Identifying magic comes a little bit later, and I would certainly have them have to actually know the spell and then have a target number to cast that spell. So that I can definitely see. But reading magic should be innate ability. Detecting magic might at some point become an innate ability, but maybe even having that as an innate ability as well might be something if they're handling the object itself. Let's say not just doing a broader thing. Again, I'm just trying to add a little bit more usefulness for low-level spellcasters that won't become overpowered over time as they do get more effective in their spellcasting. But something that is really just there to enhance their playability at lower level. Well, encumbrance rules, no. It's again, I'm not going to let a player character run around, and they say, oh, well, I have 5 suits of armor in my backpack, kind of thing, or hey, we just came across 20,000 gold pieces in this lair, and we're each going to pocket 4,000. We're each going to pocket 4,000 coins to carry on. So 4,000 ounces, whatever that's going to amount to, is just beyond carrying capacity. So do we sit there and count out coin by coin? Oh, hey, you just hit your encumbrance point. No, you're going to apply a certain amount of common sense to it, but it's not a pure hand wave, but it's certainly applying some common sense to it and saying, no, you better travel with a mule and a cart, if you're intending on going into a lair where you expect to find a great deal of treasure, or have some henchmen or whatever, porters following you along in order to serve that role. So yeah, again, encumbrance is something that players will typically keep in mind when they become much more selective with the type of treasure and items that they're looking to carry. I've had plenty of instances where players will pass up anything less than gold pieces. They won't even collect silver or copper pieces as mid-level or higher. They will only collect gold, and they prefer gems over gold. They would throw out gold in order to take gems because it's a ratio, much better, more value based on weight. If they had the choice of carrying a two-handed sword as opposed to two long swords, they would discard the one sword for the other. So probably have a slightly equal or greater value to it, but just less encumbrance. So they do it on their own for the most part. In my experience, they start becoming selective without having to nickel and dime them with a spreadsheet of exactly what they can carry and how much their carrying capacity is. It's all within common sense reasoning. Hey, how's it going, Hunter? Good to see you. Good evening. Making dinner currently. Might join if you're going on when I'm done. Sure. I'll be on this topic for a while, and anybody else is welcome to jump in. I will put that in there, and yeah, anyone else is allowed to can jump in. I'll check that. If I don't hear the ping, I will look for that. Yeah, don't try to raise my blood pressure. I'm going in for my stress test on Tuesday. But anyway, actually, my blood pressure is always very good. I just don't want to see a big problem with putting a realistic limitation on expectation of the number of spells a PC can cast per day. Um, yeah, again, it's not. Well, Castles and Crusades also uses a magic energy point system as well, which gives them, I think, greater flexibility in which spells they are casting, but it doesn't dramatically increase the number of spells that they can cast. Um, Again, I think Shadow Dark has it where I think probably that correct balance of you can cast it as often as you're successful. You might only have one spell in your repertoire, and really a first level spell that you cast with advantage as a default. And so, um, you know, my experience is that it makes them not overpowered, but it does make them where it's like they have a little bit more sustainability throughout the entire session, and without running into the issue of them over exploiting anything. It might also mean taking a look at some spells and how some spells work, and saying, hey, you know what? Um, spells need a duration that they can be running, um, regardless of what they're initially say, right? So you might start putting caps on how long the spell can be running without having to be refreshed. Um, Especially in a game system like Shadow Dark, where let's go back to invisibility, right? So maybe there's a maximum limit of how long the invisibility can be maintained without having to recast it. All right. And that might be another solution to that kind of an issue. So taking any spell that doesn't have a duration and attaching a reasonable duration to it might be another compromise in there. Material and spell components, yes, and they're a good limiting factor, and I absolutely agree that they should have they should have in their, as part of a resource that they can expend, they could have those specific spells, and have to show, hey, I have 15 of these things. Now, again, players oftentimes understand that, and they do that themselves. But if you have like a priest or a cleric, usually their spell component is their holy symbol. Um, and that's something that they don't have that same resource management component that a magic user having to pull components out of their pouch and utilize them when they're casting spells. So that is another limiting factor, which should not be ignored. That they will need those things, but they can usually carry a pretty large supply of those things. My players druid will oftentimes look to do that foraging in between actual adventure and just travel over land, and say, hey, I'm going to spend some time foraging, looking for berries or for fruit or whatever, in order to replenish her resources to cast, whether it be the equivalent of good berry or other magical enhancements that she's looking to do as spell components. So yes, I totally agree with you there, Bo. That management of components is important and is a limiting factor as well. Let's see. I don't know what that is. Oh, you're having a stress test? Yeah, I'm Tuesday and Wednesday for me, and never had one before either. Um, Hey Roger, how's it going? Just finished my Sunday game. Wanted to pop on and see what's up. Well, we're talking about magic systems, Roger, and some some of my personal missteps with my Castles and Crusades campaign, and and being a little bit too generous with magic, and just trying to see what other ideas you all have on that in trying to fix the issue with Vancian Magic, which I think is too limiting, um, and yet mismanaging Shadow Dark system as I did, and running into that issue, and and trying to see what else other people are utilizing for it. The one thing I keep on overlooking with Shadow Darks is, on that on misfiring spells and utilizing those misfire charts. That's something that I have to just keep in my head and be like, hey, you know what? I have to remember to keep on doing those misfiring of spells and everything, which I'm pretty sure Shadow Dark got from DCC. But yeah, that's a great thing to have in there as well. And here's the other thing that I also discovered, or thought about while my one player was in my view, exploiting his character's invisibility. And invisible just means that they cannot see you. They can still smell you. They can still see your footprints or see the disturbance in the ground that you're doing. Some creatures might even have like a tremor sense, and so they can feel the vibrations in the ground as you are, moving about or whatnot. And even though my player objected to the idea that anything could smell him, which is absurd. But but the point is that you have to remember that certain spells do not preclude the opponents utilizing other senses in order to smell them, hear them, feel their presence even, and whatnot as well. So that's something else to keep in mind. And that wasn't something I forgot. That was something that I was utilizing to say, hey, you know what? You're fighting wereboars, and wereboars have the same kind of sense of smell that a boar has. And so their sense of smell is like 2,000 times the human sense of smell. So just because you're invisible doesn't mean that they can't smell that you're freaking there. So you might still get attacked, even though they'll have the minuses to hitting you. They'll have the difficulty of not necessarily being able to know exactly where you're at, but they'll have a close enough idea that they can smell you, and then they can also look at the ground and see any kind of shuffling or whatnot taking place on the ground as well. Vancian or bust? I'll take bust. All right, so I will take a different system than just straight up Vancian, because I think that Vancian is too limiting, especially at lower levels. Just too limiting on a player whose character can very, very quickly burn through their 1, 2, or possibly 3 spells that they can cast at first level very early on in the game session. Clerics have a little bit more fighting ability than a magic user has, but magic users can definitely feel like they are useless to the party once they've cast their 1, 2, or at most 3 spells that they have for that session. And I don't like to have like arbitrary, okay, you're all going to pack it up and go back to town and you're going to go to sleep, or you're going to go make camp and hang out in this one, particular area for the next 4 hours waiting for the day to burn through, and then you can go to sleep and get your spells back the next day. I don't like artificially fast tracking through doing anything while they wait around just to be able to sleep, and then just burning through random encounter checks rather than having them, genuinely adventuring in a way that makes the most sense as to what they would be doing. So as with the spell scrolls have the choice to transcribe scrolls as raw, or they can do it with advantage if they take the scroll back to town or have help. Yes, that's another thing that they can do. They can transcribe scrolls to their spell book, and with advantage again if they're doing it from a place where they can study them more clearly and such. Yes, they do. They provide several alternatives for CNC. Like I said, they do have the magic the magic energy point system, which I can show it here, and I will. Let's see. Share. I think it's this one. Yes. So here is the other system, cost to cast spells. So let's see where we have the thing. So channeling, mana mep. In this system, spellcasters don't fire and forget their magic, but instead have a pool of magic energy they are able to channel from the land itself, known as mana. This pool is represented in the form of mana energy points, or MEP, which can be expended to cast any spell the caster has prepared throughout the day. The number of MEP a caster has begins small and grows as the character grows in level. The conceit is that the caster better master their craft and grows in power. Their body can harness and contain more energy. All right, so a first level caster can, starting and gaining MEP. So a first level cleric will have 5 MEP per level. So they will start with 5 and then a dice roll of D8. So the D8 might be, thus a first level cleric has 4 MEP for 4 0 spells. Let me read this more carefully. Casters begin play with MEP to cast all their prepared spells once, including MEP for any bonus spells. At each level, they gain enough MEP to cast a new spell. New spells they gain again at a cost of a spell level +1 per spell. Thus, a wizard at first level, a wizard gains 8 MEP, 4 MEP for their 4 0-level spells and 2 each for their first level spells. Thus, any MEP for bonus spells. If the character has an intelligence of 15, they gain an additional first level spell, and so on and so forth, right? So since we'll focus on magic users, so they start with MEP, the 6 2d6, what does that stand for? Let's see what the die roll stands for. I don't see, because I haven't used this system, I don't see what the 2d6 stands for. If they start with 8 and then 2d6 is if they want to roll it instead. I'm guessing if they want to roll it instead, but then why would this be a d4, a d6 going down? So that I'm confused with. Thus, a second level cleric has 5 plus 3 equaling 8. So a second level cleric would have 5 plus 3. All right, that makes sense. What's the die factor for? I don't know what the die factor is for on this chart here. And they don't specifically state. If anyone knows, Ducato, if you know what that die factor is for, please let me know. Let's see. That's if you roll it. All right, so that's if you roll it. If you wanted to roll it. Yeah, but why would you roll the D4? I guess that's to see if you wanted to gain up to D4. That would make sense for you to take that chance at higher levels. You either use the average or the roll. Yeah, why would you ever use the roll when you're second level, looking at that system? When you go, you can have 5 or a D8. You could have 3 or a D6. You could have 3 or a D6. You could have 5 or a D8. I would never. You could have 4 at 5th level. You could have 4 or a D8. At a 6th level, you could have 8 additional or 2 D6. Okay, all right. Now I see what they're saying. I still wouldn't take that chance. I would just take the base. Yeah, I would just take the base. Very strange. But anyway, yeah, now I get it. Thank you, Roger. Or Death Angels, thanks. You either use the average or the roll. All right. Where is the balance, though? I mean, just considering AD&D a level 12 magic user is way more frightening than an equivalent fighter. Until he's cast all his spells, right? Then he's, you know what I'm saying? Until he's cast all of his spells. And I'm more so talking about lower level magic users, or clerics and everything. I'm not talking about the issue of, and in Shadow Dark, they don't go that high. And also, in Shadow Dark, they don't have the same number of spells available to them. For instance, let me just grab it. So let's see how fast I can pull this up here. So spells, wizard casting spells. So 43. So there are, oh wait, let's see. So here are, I'm going to go through this here. There are only 6 first level priest spells. There are 6 second level. There are 6 third, 6 fourth, and 6 fifth. So they only go up to levels 1 through 5. There's a total of 30 spells total, all right, that they can utilize. So you have, and let's see, the most powerful, let's say, frightening spells that you can do would be 4th level. Like they have Fireball, right? So let's take a look at Fireball very fast, because that's the the scariest of spells, right? For a magic user. Let's see, they do them in alphabetical order. So let's take a look at Fireball. So Fireball will do 4d6 damage. So not based on not increasing by level or anything like that. The maximum it's going to do is 4d6 damage. So that's where the balance comes from, is that you don't have those spells that are, all right, you're going to do, 20d6 damage, and they save for half, and it's still a massive amounts of damage. So that's where the limitation comes from. It comes from the number of spells, number one, and two, it comes from they don't do all, whether you're casting it as a 5th level magic user or a 10th level magic user, it still does the same amount of damage. Or you just have an easier time casting it, but it still only does the same amount of damage. Let's see. I saw something about and Dragon Bane. I did a physical one last time. All right, so let's go. Dragon Bane. In Dragon Bane, you spend willpower to cast. I have yet to play a caster in that system, but every game I have been in has had them without complaints. Okay. I like rolling to cast, and Shadow Dark is one of the few to get it right. DCC is great, but it can get out of control. That's always a big thing. Yeah, it can get kind of crazy. With what they call wild magic, right? So that's another limiting factor is that possibility, and maybe that's what gets to like some of that limiting factor that Bo was talking about, was that in systems where you can have spell mishaps and it becomes kind of scary about doing it, you might become a little bit more, more hesitant to frivolously cast spells. Not only could you lose them for the day, but you can also have a mishap, which could be quite substantial. I don't think Shadow Dark gets to the quite substantial as DCC does, but it certainly does have some mishaps. Well, you could spam Magic Missile as long as you have a system where you can only, you have to roll to cast. You could technically spam that, and if you have a system that has where they can select one first level spell, you can have that as their advantage spell so that they always cast that with advantage. But Magic Missile in a system like Castles and Crusades does not ramp up like it does in AD&D First Edition either. It does a set amount of points, and you might just gain an additional casting or additional missile every 3rd level, but Shadow Dark only goes up to 10th level, so you're not going to get more than 3, at most 4 missiles on the casting anyway. Yeah, Magic Missile only does D4. Like I said, you do get additional missiles, but free spells always do that, but these are not free if you have to cast. All right, so if you have to roll to cast, they're not really free. Again, looking at some of the spell descriptions in whether it's Castles and Crusades or or AD&D First Edition, let's say, then I think the issue comes with spells that don't have, excuse me, came out of nowhere, don't have a specific duration to them. So you should not be able to remain invisible all freaking day. Hey, how's it going, Lava Lamp Bob? Good to see you. I've not played D&D in like 15 years. All right, so yeah, it's D&D or any very Vancian Magic system adopted from D&D that I'm kind of talking about. By cantrips, I meant no cost, unlimited casting. Well, Vancian and Castles and Crusades does have a limit on cantrips. You can only cast 4 cantrips a day for those. No, CNC has nothing like 5e cantrips. Yeah, which are really not cantrips in my opinion. Yeah, and I'm not that familiar. It's been a long time since I've looked at 5e. I don't even have my copies of 5e anymore, so I can't tell you. And the cantrips in AD&D were more like magic trick type of things. They were never like a really big boon or enhancement to what was going on. There were more kind of just to make something flashy. Yes, they're not as unlimited. Yeah, nothing should be free to cast and spammable. And that's why, certain systems do utilize a roll to cast. And if you fail the roll, you can't cast any longer, until you get technically a full rest, at least 6 hours of rest to repay for it or repay for it or do otherwise. Again, if anyone wants to join in, there is the link, and I will check to see. So where does anyone all right, so let's see. Thinking about the various systems that I'm looking at, I wasn't a big fan of the mana system in Castles and Crusades when we were using it. We were using it. It became very difficult to keep track of as far as how much mana each player character still had that were spellcasters. I found that it was that was very cumbersome to keep track of that kind of a thing. It's like, oh, I got, and it was a nightmare to figure out how much they gained with each level. I just remember my players just trying to calculate how many they had on the new level and everything. It wasn't as simplistic as what you see on the chart was, oh, I just gained another, 4 mana points. It was much more complicated than that. So yeah, I was not a big fan of it, although it did give some more flexibility. I don't think that it did more than that. Hey, Ducato, how's it going?
Doing good.
You are dressed for winter. I guess you're.
Yeah, it's cold here.
Yeah. So I know we're supposed to get a nor'easter tomorrow or something like that. So we'll see. So you might get that.
Really? Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah, we're supposed to get a nor'easter tomorrow, and although it's not going to be like a cold one, it's just going to be a lot of water But by the time it gets up to you, if it doesn't kick out the sea, you might get more than we do.
We could use a lot of water though. We had a really, really dry summer.
Yeah, Venger uses like a blood magic, right? So he uses a system where you can kill, you can kill your opponents and suck. He uses a blood magic for it.
That would be neat for certain classes. I mean, I don't know if
Well, yeah, it's like
class would want to do that, but
that's more of a sorcerer's kind of thing than it is a magic user's kind of thing. So yeah, sorcerers using blood magic is not unheard of. That's a pretty good, that's a pretty good setup. I like that, and I like the magic casting in Venger's Dragon Slayer, Crimson Dragon Slayer game system. So what about spell slots? As far as having spell slots, I don't mind spell slots per se. I just think that they need to be a little bit more open.
yeah, we use it like those slots. So like I'm playing a druid, so like I have 2 spells a day that I 2 spells that I can cast because we're messing around, basically using Shadow Dark in
Right.
OSC. And so I have 2 spells. Actually, now I just leveled up. So I'll have 2 first level spells and a second level spell that I can cast. But we're doing roll to cast.
And you're doing roll to cast. So if you fail the roll, you can't cast that for the remainder of the session, correct?
Yeah, pretty much. You have to do if the session includes like a overnight rest, then I could get it back.
Then you can get it back.
If not, it's done until I get that.
Yeah, that's the other thing I've been trying to do is avoid a mid-session, night stay over kind of thing.
We don't typically have them in our sessions.
Yeah.
Maybe in a longer session we would, but typically I don't think we do.
Yeah, it's like I try to keep my character, my players onto like a, if you're doing a session, you're adventuring for 4 hours, and it kind of works out that way anyway, right? So that's why I kept on having that issue with my one player. It was like, well, I'm all out of spells, and I want to rest. I was like, you guys just woke up 2 hours ago. It's like no.
We had that in when we were playing 5th edition. We had that.
Yeah,
people would
it was like
burn their abilities and be like, "Oh, can we take a short rest?" And we're like, "No, we literally just fought for 30 seconds."
Yeah, it was like, it's like, no, you're not going to do it, and it became a big issue, and I was like, no, it's just not going to happen. So all right, so I'm going to go like 2 or 3 sessions without actually having an opportunity to rest. And I was like, well, yeah, if our sessions are running about 3 hours or 3.5 hours or so, then yes, you could very well go 3 sessions before your characters are actually looking to camp, and sleep overnight. That's just, I'm not quite a stickler with real time, but it kind of plays out that way naturally, and that's how I like to think about it, whether I'm doing Castles and Crusades or AD&D First Edition or Shadow Dark, doesn't really matter. I mean, Shadow Dark, you have the extra added, mechanic of, setting the timer and burning a torch every hour, so it makes it a little bit easier to say, hey, this has only been 1 hour of adventuring, but it almost emulates that in my own experience anyway. Yeah.
I mean, I've played Shadow Dark and I played a caster in that, and I didn't find it like swinging my character way above everybody else. Like,
take it easy, Bo. Have a good day at work. Sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to. He was contributing a lot to it, the conversation.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
definitely wanted to touch bases with him and see, how they in the 4D realm really deal with it, because I know that they're playing more so in both in role play and in real time, to a certain extent. And you know, I mean, I know it's a thing to say, oh well, you just have to be managing your resources really well, but you know,
Well, that's
there's some
true, but like
players sitting there and
at a
not
low
feeling
level, your
like
resources
they're
are like
useful.
I have one spell, like
Yeah,
written. So it's like I don't really have resources. It's like
yeah, it's like,
it's pretty limited. I
yeah,
mean, I'm not 100% against personally against Vancian. I mean, because I play in other games where that. I mean, I run Castles and Crusades, and we use the magic system as it is.
right,
I don't know. I have my yeah. I don't. I wouldn't switch that game to a roll to cast now. I have told my group that the next game I run will likely have a roll to cast system, just because I
yeah,
kind of do like it. But we'll see. I could change my mind about that too. So,
yeah, yeah.
but I played Shadowdark and
Yeah,
thought it was
I
great.
will.
And
Yeah, yeah, I will switch up in a system if I find that something is just not working. You know,
yeah,
yeah, I'll be like, I don't wait till the next campaign to, all right, we're gonna, no, I'll just, but I've been with my players for a long time. You know what I'm saying? They're pretty much, hey, okay, like they'll say, I mean, I'll have a big discussion with them and say, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you all think? Do you all agree with that? And then we'll just change it up. You know, sometimes I make mistakes, and it's like,
yeah,
and I try something, and I was like, yeah, you know what, this is not working out. And fortunately, they kind of saw that. I mean, you were in my Discord, so you could see
yeah, yeah. I
people,
follow along
they
with
go out, and it's like, and again, I take a lot, in that I was too generous with the magic system,
it. Yeah.
and
Well,
um,
yeah, but then you also had a player that was
no,
kind of
I know
exploiting
he took advantage of that, but the point
it.
was that it's like I didn't realize my mistake until I saw the exploit that
Right.
it
Yeah.
created,
Sometimes yeah, it takes that too.
and then for me as a game master, I would be like, all right, players, listen, my bad. I see that this was a mistake, and I'm changing it. I'm not going to
Yeah.
continue doing something that is broken just because
Right.
we
No.
started it out that way.
We'll
No,
fix
I
it.
will. I will certainly check with them and say, hey, you know what? This is going on. No, I sometimes have massive mistakes. So it's like
Yeah.
there are no
I,
happy little accident.
I mean, I
We,
think as a game master, we reserve that right to fix the game if it's
oh
broken,
yeah,
right? So
yeah. Especially if it's
like
our
my
game.
group, the guys, a couple of guys that play cast as a cleric and a wizard, they went out and bought the adventurer's backpack. No, I'm sorry, the
Spell
spell
cards.
book,
Oh, the spell book.
and that's okay, but there's a lot of spells in that are kind of whacked,
Yeah,
and I didn't realize that. So, I mean, I didn't want to come out and say, hey, you guys can't use that book anymore. If I ran a new campaign, that book wouldn't be part of the campaign. But now I just say, hey, if you guys are going to pick a new spell from that book, you need to run it by me before you just throw it on the
yeah,
character sheet. And because I need to look at it,
yeah,
because some of the stuff is just weird. And they're fine with that. My guys are
yeah.
like, yeah, that's fine.
What I did with that with the unearthed arcana was I told them I will reveal those spells to you as like scrolls that you find out in the so every
Yeah,
once in a while they'll get a scroll, and it'll be strictly an unearthed arcana thing. That way I'm kind of controlling what kind of spells get out there,
yeah,
but it really does catch them like, oh wow, this is something that's not straight out of the
yeah,
player's handbook,
yeah.
and they're just more excitement around it. And
Yeah,
I
I did that.
because I have the spellcaster's book for
Yeah,
for Castles and Crusades as well. I've never had the players ask to use it yet,
right.
but I do have those in there. And I've been doing the same thing with like the armory, and I've been throwing weird weapons at them, which oddly enough, the armory has some, like, all the weapons in there are like a D4. It's like if you
Yeah,
ever
the damage values in that book are
armory at all,
whack.
it's like, yeah, a lot of the weapons are just underpowered. I'm like, what? I was like,
I don't know why you'd use most of them other than they look cool.
yeah, they look really cool, but they're all like,
They're not very
I was
effective.
like, nah, no, a two-bladed axe is not going to do D4. It's going to do at least a D6. If it looks like a hand axe, I'm treating it like a hand axe. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
otherwise, why would they do that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Those books kind of baffle me. I was
Yeah,
shocked
yeah,
at some of it. I did the same thing though with Magic back in the third edition. I still am a big fan of the Book of Vile Darkness that came out for third edition or 3.5. And I had a player actually I had two players in my group at that time that were casters, and none of them were allowed to use that book for spells. Like if they
yeah,
got those spells, it was because they found a scroll, and I would build NPCs around those because the NPCs were bad guys and they were evil and they would use that
yeah.
type of magic. This isn't magic you would generally learn, and if they got it through a found item, scroll or whatever, or a book or something. So
When I was running OSC, I was running the OSC rules, but I was using all the AD&D first edition modules.
Mhm.
So every time they found a scroll that did not exist in OSC, I just told them it was like some form of ancient magic from like the age of Igweld
nice.
and all of that thing, Maryland and Bigby and all that, and that there was a huge war at some point in Greyhawk and a lot of magic got lost.
Cool.
And then that away, like when they found, because we went through the lost tombs of Sajkanth, and every time they found a scroll that would have some crazy, AD&D spell on it, they'd be super happy about it. And it never threw anything off balance because, I mean, AD&D versus OSC Advanced, I mean, it's the
Right.
one thing I wanted to bring up though is, and I think this could work with D&D type games, but when I wrote my own game a long time ago, I guess back in 15, how I did it is a character got 1 mana point per level plus whatever their intelligence modifier was in mana, and spells cost an amount of mana equal to their level to cast. So a first level mage with +3 intelligence mod had basically 4 mana points. So if he wanted to unload a level 4 spell on a day, he could, but then he'd be done. Or he could cast his 4 first level spells. And and then you recover a mana point every couple hours, I think 4 hours or so. Yeah. So, and that's a totally different system than D&D, but I feel like it would work with D&D just fine.
Yeah.
Just be like, yep.
Well, I mean, technically, Castles and Crusades has a mana system, and it's about the same amount of points that you're talking about. The only thing, let's see what they say about regaining mana. All map expended is regained after a full night's rest. It is not regained per hour from briefer forms of meditation or any other means, only a night's rest. All right, so
so the way
I do have emergency casting.
more difficult.
Normally, when the spellcaster runs out of MEP, he can cast no further spells until rest. In an emergency situations, however, a caster may attempt to cast additional spells by tapping into their own life force. All right, so basically you're sapping your HP. Thus, a third level spell will normally cost 4 map to cast. Cost 8 points of Constitution to let loose. Right, so that's even more severe. If their Constitution score goes to 0 or below, they die with no save allowed. So you can't. That's like good magic, right?
I did something similar to that, but how I did it is the mage would take 1 die damage per level spell they were casting without expending mana.
Yeah.
So they could still cast that first level spell if they needed it, but if they decided they wanted to bust the 5th level spell out, they could take 40 damage and just be dead. So, but I mean, I ran the game that way for about 2 years, and it worked just fine. I mean, it worked so well that my daughter said the only time she'll ever play role-playing games again is if we run that game. So I guess that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Like a sacrifice, yes.
Yeah.
And
give up your own life to.
Yeah, and that's something, that's cool too. I like that idea. That could be another thing that I can implement is if I were going to use the MEP, I would certainly allow them to do that as well and to cast beyond that. But I'm thinking I'm going to probably just shift to a pure form of Shadow Dark and just go with that, and
it's pretty well tested.
Yeah, I think it's pretty well tested. I'm very familiar with it. My screwing around with it is what broke it, basically. It's like, all right, I'm not screwing around with that anymore. Although I think the mishap should increase with a higher level, of it. You know what I'm saying? So like if you're casting a 5th level spell, which is the highest level of spell, the mishap of it should be just happen more frequently. So they have mishaps for tiers 4 and 5, and they only have mishaps for they have a mishap for tier 5. So devastation, roll twice and combine both effects, re-roll any further. So you can tear a hole in the fabric of the universe close to you.
That can be fairly severe.
Yeah, that basically just sucks you away, right? You go into
either sucks you away or drops some sort of Cthulhu mythos creature in your lap.
Yeah, Gate is another common one. Fairly on a D12, Gate is like the common one, right? Because it's at a 6. You open a magic portal to another location, whether on this plane or another. Something dreadful will come through in 1 to 4 rounds unless you close it. DC 18 intelligence you check on your turn. So
these tier 5 ones are pretty severe, though. They are pretty severe. Like you could lose the ability to cast a random tier until you complete a rest. Like
that could be. I've also seen other ones where you have to, it might take you, days, if not even weeks, to cast spells again. You might have to relearn them completely, like re-put them in or whatnot. So there are other, variants of the backfires of spell casting. So that's another thing I might take a look at. I'll take a look at it. Well, you lose the spell more often, just like it says, or certainly hold them to the misfires. But they have no misfires on the clerical spells, which,
Well, the clerical spells, if you lose it, you lose.
You have to atone. That's right.
You have to atone.
Yeah, you have to atone if you roll a if you roll a 1, you have to atone.
You're written a pocketbook with the cleric spells.
Yeah, that's written in there. Yeah, that was the one that I remember. If you fumble on that, you have to atone for it.
Yeah, because you pissed your deity off.
Pissed your deity off. Yeah, I like that. I think that's what I'm going to,
Gods apparently like money, so they need to pay up.
If any of my players are listening, you're going to see a change to the magic system.
Get ready.
So get ready for it. Get ready for it. I think almost all of them have Shadow Dark. So just take a look at Shadow Dark and you'll know where I'm going with it. So slight modification, slight tightening up on it. And Shadow Dark just released their spell cards too. So that's
nice.
Did they?
Yeah, they released the PDF of their spell cards. So if you did if you backed the Western Reaches,
Yeah, I should
then
have those.
yeah, that's on the backer kit. Yeah, that was just released the other day.
What? I
Now,
should look
one
that
thing
up.
I always do in D&D games is unless the mage finds a scroll, if they want to learn a spell, they have to find a higher level mage that has that spell.
Oh yeah, I do that too.
Yep.
Like, when they go up a
too.
level and they're gaining a new spell, like I'll let them go and they'll have to go to a school of magic or their mentor or whatever and pick up a new spell and sometimes I'll let them pick it, or they might get one randomly or whatever, but or a combination.
Yeah, their professor might be all like, "You need this spell." It's like, damn it.
Yeah, I played a magic user one time in this person's, this DM's game where I literally we did not go back to a town where I could study new spells from like level 1 to 3. I was 3rd level and I still only had the starting spells I started with, and he just refused to let us go to a town. It was like, can we please go back to I was like, I'm a 3rd level magic user and I only have my 1st level spells. I want to go someplace where I can learn more spells, and he just would never take us out that direction. It was like, I was like, all right, my character is completely useless at this point. It's like, because that was a Vancian as well. It was like, I cast my 2 spells. Thankfully, I was really good with a sling. I had a high dexterity, and I think it was like +2 on my attacks with a sling. And I spent most of my time, once I cast my magic missile, I spent most of my time slinging away. I was pretty good at it.
Yeah, that was one of the things I liked about 4th edition D&D. I know a lot of people may not have, is that
a dirty dwarf.
Magic Missile was basically every mage had it and could use it every round. But you had to roll to hit with it.
Yeah.
So instead of the mage always carrying around a light crossbow or, a satchel full of darts, they just had their, take that, you fiend, to quote the troll game. And, they just rolled to hit. And if they hit, they did 1d4 plus 1 damage.
Yeah.
So did it change anything? Nope. But it made the wizard actually cast spells.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice. The wizard was actually casting magic.
Yeah. And I like that. And I like the, the one thing that I would probably do to make it a little bit easier is that I'll let my players choose one spell, a 1st level, that they are so proficient with that they always cast it with advantage. So priests are almost always going to cast Cure Light Wounds with advantage.
Right.
That way they're not going to, only a 1st level spell, only, so it's just something and something that they can choose, completely out of the box. And so, one might say, hey, I'm choosing invisibility as well. I don't know if that's a 1st level spell, but they might choose invisibility is probably not 1st level, but anyway,
I'm pretty sure it's 3rd.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's 3rd.
Second.
Well,
but it's
it's
a powerful
second.
spell.
It's second. Yeah. I know it's not 3rd. But anyway, so like for like Castles and Crusades, Alarm, Burning Hands, Charm Person, Detect Magic, Featherfall, Floating Disc, Hold Portal, Light, Magic Armor, Magic Missile, Protection from Evil, or Sleep. They're either going to choose Sleep or Light or Magic Missile for a 1st level spell to roll with advantage.
Well, I mean, sleep would be the if you're looking to min max, sleep would be the way to go, because you could in
Especially
theory
for low level.
take out a room full of orcs
Yeah.
with one spell.
Yeah. So in our Dragonbane games, elven wizards can use bows. Yeah. In a system, elves got a bonus to bows. Yes. So I went to Arnicon. Let me read this here. Yeah, how was Arnicon 2? I'm going to ask you a little bit about that. I went to Arnicon 3 here in St. Paul this weekend and picked up crit success fail card decks for spells.
He's in Minnesota, don't you know?
Oh, is he? All right.
Well, if he went to St. Paul,
travel to Arnicon, so I don't know if he's in Minnesota.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I don't know that, but still lives there. But
it's designed for 5e, but I plan to use it for various OSR clones. All right, cool.
5e is close enough that it shouldn't be a big deal to convert it. Really, it's not that far off. Dragon Slayer, Decado, Dragon Slayer. You're the second guy I know that plays that. You and Bubba.
I have Dragon Slayer. I just haven't had a chance to play it or run or whatever. I'll see if I catch somebody running it at one of the conventions and definitely playing one.
Yeah, I own it, but I've never played it because I always end up playing OSC Advanced.
Yeah. Yeah, I just put into running a third game at CNY, but I'll see if Greg Gillespie is running Dragon Slayer, I'll definitely play in his game.
Well, that would be something, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Be like, I played in the game with the guy who actually created the game. That'd be braggable. But nobody tried to fix Magic user throwing lawn darts.
I don't think it's broken
in 4th edition.
Yeah. I used to take them too as it's an effective weapon, but you can't carry as many of them as sling stones, though. You know what I'm saying? It's like, how many are you going to be able to carry?
I've had to explain to people that when they say dart in D&D, they don't mean like the kind you use at the pub.
No, they're talking lawn darts. They're literally lawn darts. They're
talking about whatever the Romans used to call them, and the Romans would keep them on the inside of their scutum, and they're like 1.5 feet long.
Yeah,
freaking lawn. Yeah, like you said, like those lawn darts we all tried to kill ourselves with when we were
in the 70s and 80s. I mean, he still has them, right? I want to see. All right, so now I'm going down that rabbit hole. Amazon.
Dirty Dwarf Dragon Slayer is so close to OSC and Advanced D&D and Basic D&D. I mean, it's like they're all first cousins. So if you played any one of these games, you can play any other one.
Yeah, there's some differences with the classes, but they're easy to adapt.
Yeah, they're so close. It's not even a thing.
This is a travesty. I'm gonna have to share this screen. This is a travesty. All right. This is a travesty. All right. Well, let me find share. Share screen.
Share.
Here we go.
What the hell?
These are not fucking lawn darts.
Yeah, those aren't lawn darts. I mean,
lawn darts.
There's zero risk of death or serious bodily injury.
Oh wait, here we go. These are the ones that were lawn darts, but those are lawn darts.
If you can't accidentally poke a hole through your mom's freaking car hood,
what happened?
then you're not using the right lawn dart.
Yeah. These are genuine lawn darts.
Throw that joker up in the air and it lands on the mom's car, and it's like
the 1969 lawn darts. So yeah, these are the 1969 versions of
Oh yeah, those things weigh like a pound each, and you just chuck them straight up.
These are the Gen X versions, right? So 12 by 8 inches. So it's like
with a big metal tip.
Yeah, I want
that
to
thing
get
was
the
not messing around, man.
see product details. What are the unit count? Well, they're one for one. So
Product details. This could kill you.
yeah.
I think that's just a sign. They're not
No.
selling the actual dart.
Oh yeah, there's no way they're selling those.
Oh, they're
No.
not selling the actual dart?
No,
that's
they're
just
just showing you
a
what we grew up.
sign
That's
thing
oh,
for
that's
a
horrible.
main
All right,
cave.
so do they actually still sell the darts? No, you
No,
probably
I doubt it.
eBay.
You might be able to find them on eBay or something.
Yeah, you'll have to
Yeah.
find them on eBay. Yeah, they don't have real darts.
No.
They have these things here. And people are so
Yeah, they also don't have monkey bars that are like 20 feet tall and 40 feet long. You climb up that thing and try to get across it, and it's like and there's no rubber padding on the playground like there is now. It's you fall down, you're just hitting gravel. It's like whatever. And people wonder why us crotchety old dudes are the way we are. It's like we survived childhood. So cut us a break. I always joke about that. When I went to basic training, it was so like, because of the way I grew up was so difficult, having an outhouse and no running water and stuff. It was like basic training was like cake, because I was like, what, I get showers and stuff, hot meals 3 times a day. And all we got to do is go for a little walk. I mean, I already fire rifles every single day. So, I mean, range time was no problem. Oh, man. Appalachia. But back to your topic, though, with the magic systems. I mean, have you ever played Warhammer? Any version of it?
Back in the day when it first came out, and very briefly.
Yeah, that one's got some systems where if you roll like a nat 100, you just literally roll a new character. Yeah. Not only that, but the whole group may roll a new character, because you might rip a hole into the warp and a greater demon of some sort could come out. And most groups are not going to be able to defeat a greater demon of Khorne or Slaanesh or any of them, really. I mean, it's just so, yeah, you got to be careful with magic in that game. You can definitely get your whole group killed. Really, really pretty easy. So, I ran every version but third, because third was the one by Fantasy Flight that kind of looked more like a board game than an actual role playing game. And now they have a new edition. It's like, they got a new edition of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay that uses like a different set of rules than 4th edition.
Yeah, it's the old world.
The old world. And then they've got
like 7th edition.
They've got an Age of Sigmar role-playing game. And then they redone the Warhammer 40K role-playing game, but it uses the 4th edition Warhammer Fantasy rules instead of the Wrath and Glory rules. But the one thing all of those games have in common, Richard, is if you roll 100 on a cast or trying to use a psychic ability, you're done.
Yeah.
Just cash it in. You're done. Maybe the whole group's done. Everyone near you is done. The whole world could be done, depending on how big the rip you ripped into the warp is. I mean, like in the one adventure campaign I ran, they even talk about if you don't stop the cultists from casting a spell, they open a rip in the warp and the entire city of Bogenhaven just ceases to exist. And that's just what it is. I mean, and so if the players somehow escape Bogenhaven, you have to play the rest of the campaign with Bogenhaven being a wasteland of demons, and the whole region around it within like 50 miles or something. So, I mean, it's some high risk stuff there, So
Greg is a cool guy. We met Greg at CNY last year.
Isn't he a doctor?
Yeah, he has a PhD in something, right? History, I think.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think he's an MD, but he does got a doctor.
No, he's not an MD. I think he has a PhD in history.
Very, very laudable. I've seen his interviews. He always seems like a really great guy, and I love Borrow Maze. Borrow Maze is so cool.
Yeah, that's something I'll have to pick up and everything. I'm not a big like the biggest like massive complex kind of adventure that I've ever run my players on was B2. It was like Caves of Chaos. It's like that you could literally run for. I think I ran that for like 16 weeks with them. That's how long they spent in that module was 16 weeks, a good solid 4 months play.
Well, when you were on my channel the other day, were you there when I was talking about having ran B2 like 12 times?
Yeah, I don't remember you saying that, but
players.
Yeah,
but I just kept changing what was in which cave complexes and stuff, or changing the name of instead of the keep on the borderland. The last it was Stojanov Keep, and the Castilian was Josef Stojanov.
Yeah.
And I created a whole Slavic-based homebrew setting based on Stojanov Keep. It was pretty crazy.
Cool.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of actually. Yeah, I'm thinking of running B2 using Shadow Dark, converting it to Shadow Dark and running it like that.
You wouldn't even have to convert it. You could do it in your brain, like on.
I know. I'm just saying. It's just.
Man.
Because
like in B2 it says Hobgoblin, armor class, whatever, hit point, whatever, and it's just like, all right, go nuts.
Yeah, I already have all the tokens and everything I have with.
Oh yeah, you play online
with the armor class as ascending armor class anyway. So that's not even something I'd have to convert.
And someone told me there's math. It's basically like if you want to know what the modern armor class is, you just deduct the old armor class from 20. So armor class 4 becomes a 16.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Chainmail is a 15.
It's like super easy,
Yeah.
I'm painting some basilisks.
I think it's history or media studies. Cool, dude. I'm pretty sure it's history.
Well, if I were going to go to school again, it'd be history.
Yeah, I got my master's degree in history.
That's what I would go for.
But it's, I did mine in American history. That's what my master's was.
Oh, I think I'd specialize in Eastern Rome.
Yeah, that would be
always been kind of obsessed with Constantinople and all that. So
I did that as part of my bachelor's was, world history and that kind of stuff. But yeah.
Yep. Yeah, Dragon Slayer though, it's a good game. But yeah, it's the same as
if you have I ran into that kind of rut too. It's like I was like, all right. Like when OSC first came out, when it was first in its first Kickstarter, I passed up on the Kickstarter for 2 reasons. Number one, I was looking at it and I was like, it was coming in like September, October, and that's when my school property taxes are due. So it was like they just don't have the expendable income. It was like $120. I think it was like its initial Kickstarter was like $120 for everything. And at that time, that was kind of high for Kickstarters.
Very high.
I was like, you know what? And then I was like, I have AD&D First Edition, and I have the Homes Edition. So what do I need this? And I had the same conversation with Dragon Slayer too. It's like, if I have Homes and I have this, why do I need that? Kind of thing. It's like
the main selling point of OSC is formatting.
Yeah. Crushes.
That's really it. It's beautifully formatted, but it's not going to do anything any better than CNC, Dragon Slayer, or AD&D, as you mentioned. It's just formatted better.
Yeah.
Which it always surprises me when people put games out, and it's like, dude, you should have took 20 minutes at least to thumb through OSC and get an idea, right? I mean, that's exactly the standard for format now. I mean,
yeah, it is a bit pricey. I have the advanced in PDF though. I was like, all right, I'll get the PDF at least. I don't need the books on my shelf.
Right.
Yeah, I have the advanced books.
Yeah.
They're really all you need.
Yeah, because everything else you already have. You can
You
blow
already
into it
got
if you need it.
Um,
It's
my
easy.
master's degree thesis was on the economic impact of American privateerism during the War of 1812.
Huh.
When I submitted that to my my advisor, he was because it was part of the teaching program, right? So I was like, oh no, I'm going to use my actual master's degree and go towards a thesis that marked that, because there was 22 of us in the class, and so the other 21 were doing various things on education, and I was like, fuck that, I ain't doing that. So I went with that. So that's what it was. It was and when he emailed me like the next day, it was like, I'm so excited to hear about this. He says everyone else is doing educational based thesis statements, and you're going in a totally different direction. I'm so excited, and I mean, God, that's so long ago. That was 90. No, I'm sorry, that was 2000. So it was still 25 years ago when I got my master's.
Your poor professor was so happy to be able to read about something.
Something different than, yeah. So I remember I read 14 books, and I wrote that paper in. The paper was short on the side because he wasn't that much of a stickler, but it was still something like 65 pages, of text. And then I had maps and this and that and the other thing in there. But the biggest thing was there was this Jewish captain that was capturing so many ships on the thing, and then like he would get on board and he would hold a torch above the magazine and force them to surrender their ship rather than he'd blow up the whole damn thing, And it was just an amazing story of him and how many ships I think he captured.
Because if you're British, you're looking at this guy and you're like, will he do it? And do I want to take that chance?
Yeah. It was
he
like
might be crazy enough to do this. Shit.
Yeah. He captured something like 30 ships, I think, or something like that. The cost in, if I'm remembering, I mean, again, I'm going back 25 years ago, but I think the equivalent to the 2000 numbers was Britain lost something like $1.5 billion in privateer, in the actions of privateers, basically just bankrupted them. It was like, the War of 1812, they lost because they couldn't afford to fight it anymore. Not so much on military losses. So that was the research paper.
Well, they get what they get for kidnapping our freaking sailors.
What was the conclusion of the research? Was that the war was fought on on the fact that the British could no longer afford to continue fighting that's such a long distance, and against a naval power that they really had no way of placing an exact number on, because back then there was no official navy really. It was all private. You could own. That's why I say, like, the Second Amendment, you can own a 12-gun sloop according to the Second Amendment, right? You can own a battleship according to the Second Amendment. It's an arm, what I'm saying? So it falls under arms, and no restriction on it.
Well, I mean, some people can still own some of that kind of shit, because I know down here they do a Civil War reenactment thing up in Lusty, and these dudes drag out like their 12 to 20 pound guns, and these things actually do work. It's not like they're stoppered up or something. I mean, of course, they're just loading them with powder and firing them off. They're not putting canister in it or anything. But I mean, they're actual functioning cannons.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
apparently you can do that. It's a thing that you can do.
Oh, Death Angels. I used to challenge my. Now this is after I was already teaching, and I still went to college campuses and everything, and had to get some additional training with teaching history in particular. And oh my God, I used to tear into this one professor over at Lehman College here in New York City, and I used to tear into him. This was during deserts. This is when they were looking at Desert Storm, or it might have been possibly after, like the second time, when and he was arguing the constitutionality. It was definitely the second time, so it was definitely the second Persian Gulf, and he was going into all kinds of this nonsense about the president exceeding his authority under the War Powers Act. I was like, they gave him a freaking blank check. It was like when you give the president, you give the commander in chief a blank check, and that came from the United Nations. Don't sit back and worry about complain that he cashed it. It's like you gave him carte blanche, and he's going to certainly do it.
Right.
And there was nothing. And I was like, it was like, I've been teaching constitutional, presidential constitutional powers for 30 years. And I said, well, then you've been teaching it wrong. And the whole class was, they're all like gasped. I was like, no, you've been teaching it wrong. What can I tell you? Thankfully,
there's what the Constitution says, and there's what a lot of people wish it said.
Yeah, and that's the general sense I got.
That's where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah, that's what I generally got. I mean, he wasn't as bad as the other one that was teaching us from what's that other school? That's a Catholic school in the Fordham. He was the other one was from Fordham. He was even more of a Marxist kind of approach to it. So it was like, no, yeah, that's still wrong. He was a big pusher of Howard Zinn, the guy from that school, and I was like, Howard Zinn is a hack. I was like, so anyway, that's
it's funny because a lot of professors like when a student will call them out a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, like I think that they were taken back, but I was already teaching by that time for it wasn't like it was a college class that I was taking for credits. You know what I'm saying? It was just a training program.
The War of 1812 was over before the British even knew that it had started because of the speed of communications back then.
Yeah.
It's like by the time the British surrendered in New Orleans, the whole army had surrendered down there. Mm. The crown had not yet even begun diplomatic, but they did burn down the old White House. That is a fact. A bunch of freaking Canadians pretending to be British. Which just goes to show you can't trust those damn Canadians. They'll burn your White House down.
Yep, they did.
And be polite about it.
Yeah.
Little bastards. But anyway, yeah, a lot of that, I believe, and I don't have a master's, I just read, the British were still in our men a lot. That was a part of it, too. They would, pull over an American ship and just, Shanghai all
Oh, yeah, press gangs.
And of course that was pissing us off, and then
they were definitely utilizing press gangs, and
and we were doing shit too. I mean, what's his name? What was his name? John Paul or whatever. They actually went to England and landed and stole a bunch of shit and spiked cannons in a fort, and he invaded England by himself.
Yeah, it was a fun little war.
Yeah, it's a wild one. It's a wild one, but Yeah.
All right, so let's get back to our spell.
Back to our magic. Well,
Back
like
to
I
our
said,
magic.
I mean,
Yeah, so back
if you
to
don't
our
want to use
magic.
mana, you got to use Vancian. That's your choice.
Yeah, I'm going to go full Shadow Dark as written, and let my players, deal with that. I will let them choose one first level spell as their roll with advantage, and that's it. I won't have them utilize a spell slot for read magic. That never made sense to me anyway.
Yeah, that should be an
It
automatic.
should be an innate ability. It's like
Yeah.
you shouldn't have to cast a spell to be able to read a spell, right? that makes any sense, right? It's like, so I'm going to go with that and say,
that's a good call. I think.
That's an innate ability. Whether you can, like an illusionist might be able to, read magic automatically and possibly even identify an illusion or detect an illusion automatically.
Freaking illusionists are OP in AD&D, and people don't even know it. Like that prismatic spray or whatever.
Yeah,
that thing is
that is an incredibly useful spell.
Yeah.
Prismatic sphere is an prismatic. It's not a sphere. It's a
spray.
Prismatic spray is an incredible. It's called colorless spray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And depending on the color of the spray, it can either knock them out or do all this kind of shit.
Yeah.
I mean, illusion. I only know because one of the players at my group always plays the gnome illusionist.
Yeah.
And I've learned that some of those illusionist spells are no joke, man. They can do something.
Thinking Cloud is another really powerful spell, low level spell.
Phantasmal killer when they get up that. Because if you fail to save, guess what?
You die.
You're dead. I mean, that's just it.
Thinking Cloud, even if you pass to save, you still have to get out of the cloud. You can't breathe or anything.
You can't breathe.
You're struggling just to get. All you're doing is concentrating on getting the hell out of the cloud.
Right. Yeah. So, that's a great one. But I mean,
slots.
I'm trying to think of all the spells that I've systems I've used, and I've used MERPs, and that's mana. Call of Cthulhu uses power, which is mana.
Mm-hmm.
So it does seem like D&D uses Vancian, and everything else uses some kind of pool of mana points or something.
Yeah.
But
yeah, there's a number of systems out there, whether it be mana points or Vancian or roll to cast, kind of spells. Then you have wild magic like in DCC and everything, and each has their strengths and weaknesses, but some have more weaknesses than strengths, and that's where I've kind of gotten to in looking at like a straight up Vancian Magic from like AD&D first edition is that it's way too limiting for especially for first level or low level characters. It's way too limiting, and I want the players to feel like I'm actually doing something. I'm contributing to something throughout the entire session. I don't want them to be in the position where it's like, all right, now I gotta resort to hiding in the corner because I'm all out of spells, or I'm going to resort to just slinging stones, for the rest of the 3-hour session because or begging me, can we please go to sleep? It's like, no, you've only been awake for 2 hours. I'm not going through that nonsense either. It's like, I just want you to feel like you're effective without being overpowered, and we can still get through this session, and then maybe at the end of the session
there's got to be a happy medium, I'm sure, somewhere in there. I don't know what it is, I'll be honest, but I'm sure that there's something there, that
something. A lot of people do prefer Vancian, and I get it. It's just that the other limiting factor that we need to remember is the components and having those spell components. Because I was like, hey, you know what? When I was going to have this conversation with the player that was spamming invisibility, and I was like, hey, how many eyeballs are you carrying? Because you need an eyeball to do invisibility, right? So it's like, yeah, how many eyeballs are you carrying, and where are you getting them from? In order to cast this thing. But the flaw in that spell is that it has no duration. So as long as you're not doing anything that requires, then I started looking up various things like, so as long as you don't attack anybody, and you don't take any damage, you could be invisible, for, literally a lifetime, and to me, I was like, let me see what other limiting factors I can look up.
Well, I know we talked about this, Bloodworth, and I didn't say it when we talked about, but I was thinking about it pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
In the AD&D DMG, they give modifiers for monsters attacking invisible characters.
Oh yeah,
it's like a -6 or something, but they can still do it.
Yeah, they can
invisibility is invulnerability.
The thing is that, and this was the reminder that I tried to give to the player, was that just because they can't see you doesn't mean that they can't sense you. Sight is not the only sense that they have. And
think about a bear. Their eyesight isn't even that great, but they can smell.
Yeah, they were literally, my party was literally fighting wereboars. And he was like, the wereboar doesn't have, in the stat block, it doesn't have a sense of smell that is beyond normal. I was like, what? I was like, of course it is. It has all of the aspects of a boar.
It's like, bro, they use those to find truffles.
Yeah. I pulled
literally find a truffle 20 feet underground.
I pulled up a thing. I was like, what is the sense of smell of boars? And I got this whole thing, whether it's AI generated or not. It was like, they can smell up to 25 feet into the earth, I'm saying, for those truffles. Their sense of smell is 2,000 times that, roughly 2,000 times that of a human. They can smell something from miles away. Yeah. I was like, if it can smell something from miles away, it can sure as hell smell an elf, within 30 feet of it,
Yeah,
especially if it just tripped over you, you know what I'm saying?
And feel free to tell me shut up if I'm talking too much.
No, you're not.
So you can get in here too. And by the way, Ducato, it's James. But for some reason, I put Artyom because
I didn't know who it was at first until I heard you talking. I was like,
until you started talking, I didn't know it was like, I should have known from the,
I'm a huge Metro fan, guys. I love that game. I love everything about it. So, but anyway, a polar bear can smell a human at the ice caps like 10 miles away.
Yeah.
And then this guy, and it don't matter if you're invisible, because he can't see you 10 miles away, but he knows where you are. Wolverines can smell a deer carcass 20 feet under snow.
Yeah.
Of course, now I'm busting out all my Alaska knowledge, but So yeah, invisibility is great if you're going to try and get a sneak attack on somebody or something, but if you're fighting monsters that have like great olfactory senses, they're going to get you. Eventually they're going to get you. Morlocks don't even got eyeballs.
Mm-hmm.
There's ways around it.
So I just said one, a Morlock. It has no eyeballs.
Mm-hmm.
It still can see your ass. Because echolocation, bats, and shit like that.
Yeah, so those are all things that the game master has to consider. Hey, if the spell says that it does this or that, it's very specific. It does this. Invisibility, it cannot see you. All right. That doesn't mean that the other senses are knocked out.
Right.
I was like, wait until you run into a dragon, because they have true sight. You know, dragons can see you.
He can be
Even
like
at
Smog, he'll
invisibility.
be like, I can smell you. Hear your
Yeah.
breath. Right. Yeah.
Let's see. That's a good litmus test.
That old cartoon did kind of.
If you have to break into zoology text to prove the capability of your monsters, you might be dealing with a munchkin that you're better off kicking from your game, which ultimately is what happened, Paul. So ultimately, that's what it was
Which
that.
To me is sad, and I had to have a talk with my gnome about their invisibility BS. But the young lady who plays the gnome, she didn't argue with me. I just said, look, yes, you are invisible, but you're also running across loose sand.
Yeah.
And that means anyone's seeing those footprints. And if you're fighting at one particular time, they were fighting wolves with goblins riding them because that token, right? And it's like, those wolves, they smell you. I mean, they might not see you, but they know where you are because they can smell. And she's new to Old School. She started with 5e before she met me. Mm-hmm. And she was just like, yeah, okay. So I'm lucky. I got good players. I lay the law down. They generally don't argue. They're like, yeah.
I have been very, very lucky where I've only had 2 players in recent years. I've only had 2 players in recent years that I technically, actually only one that I technically kicked. He being the first one that I've technically kicked. The other ones was like when they declared that they were leaving, it was like, all right, I'm not begging you to come back or stay or anything like that. It was like, fine. You just made my job a lot easier. So I've only had 3 players that were that kind of negative, just not fun to play with, and then that's really what it boiled down to was, just wasn't fun to play with them anymore. And I was like, all right, you know what, it's we're better off without.
The worst player at my table is me. Because I've DM'd so much that when I do get to play, I have to sit there and basically bite my tongue and be like, like the mantra, don't be a dick. It's his game. Let him run it how he wants. You know what I mean? And people don't understand the trauma of that. You ran D&D for 40 years and all of a sudden you guys sit there and let someone else run and you're just like, oh my God, I'm so used to being the driver and now I'm just sitting here and I don't know what the hell to do and I don't want to be a smartass. And of course, all DMs think they're the best DMs.
Yeah.
And that is also the worst because you're sitting at the table thinking this poor guy who's busting his ass trying to present a good game sucks because he's not doing it how you would do it. And so I'm terrible.
I get it too. I've been in that situation where I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm a very gentle player because I play so infrequently, so that when I am finally playing, it's like I'm looking to see, especially with game systems that I'm very familiar with. Like the last time I played in someone's game as Castles and Crusades, I was like, I had a miserable time at it, just a miserable time. And we were all having a hard time with it, and it was like, we were just trying to figure out what was the next step for so long, like session after session. And it was like, I was frustrated. I was like, listen, I don't care about this adventure. I totally forgot what this adventure is about. You know what I'm saying? Because we've been spending week after week after week trying to find out the next step. And every time we talked to an NPC, the NPC would never give us any valuable information as to give us a hint of where to go next. And it really came down to, is this game master going to force us to clear the map, every single square inch of this map? And then we got the general sense that it was like, all right, we've been looking for the next step for the last 5 or 6 weeks. or something like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we went through like 4-hour sessions and not gained a single experience point. And it was like, no, where,
That's a bad game.
yeah, I was like, dude, it was like, you got to give us something. It's like we're asking all these NPCs. We went to this one NPC like 3 times with different questions and still turning us away. And we're supposed to be working for this NPC. We're trying to help this NPC. I was getting to the point that I was telling the rest of the players, I was like, listen, the next time that this freaking NPC doesn't help us out, I'm drawing my sword and I'm putting her right to the sword. I'm just going to kill her. I'm going to kill her. She's totally useless to us. I am going to kill this character, and the DM was like going nuts. He was like, well, I was like, I'm telling you right now, if she gives me that answer again, or she doesn't help us with this next, because we're trying to help her. I said I wanted to abandon this whole thing, and we're going to go to the next zone and look for new adventures. But if she's not going to give us an answer that we need to go to the next step, I'm killing her. Oh, you're abandoning. This is not how it's supposed to go. It was like we were playing his story.
Everything you described happened
Yeah.
to me in a Vampire the Masquerade game. And I finally had to pull the storyteller aside and tell him, pretend like we're all really dumb. Because you keep giving us these riddles and clues and shit.
Yeah.
None of us have any idea what the hell is going on. And we're getting frustrated. And the guy who plays the game rule, he's just out kill thrilling now because he's bored. So he's just going to go to downtown Orlando and murder a bunch of hippies or something. And it's just like, and I told him, I said, you may be just way smarter than us, but you're going to have to ease up. We don't know what we're even doing. We're hanging out every night. We've been playing for 2 months every weekend, and no one knows what the F is even going on.
Yeah, that's exactly what
and
we
then
were.
The next time he made things a little easier so we could finally figure out. He had an NPC roll in and drop some, some narration on us and stuff. And then we're like, oh, okay. So this is what we're doing. Okay. Got it. Good job, bro.
Well, sometimes you get locked into like you have, as you're running the game, you have your perspective and then you don't see it the way they see it. You like, this should be painfully obvious. And they're like, no, it isn't.
That's the problem with riddles, Staccato.
Yeah.
Because you make a riddle and you think, this is simple as shit. And then the players are sitting there like, what?
Yeah.
Scratching their heads. They're like, no.
Getting frustrated and pissed. And that's what, and people say, oh, so-and-so become a problem player. Well, no, he didn't become a problem player. He got bored. And when he got bored, idle hands are the devil's playground. He's going to go out and start doing messed up shit because he's bored. And he showed up to the game expecting to have a good time, and he's not having a good time. So now he's just burning the world down with him. And it's like, whatever, man. That wasn't me, by the way. That was someone else. That's the game group. I was cool. But,
Yeah, so, I eventually, I was like, no, I can't take this anymore. And I left that campaign. There was only 3 of us at the time. And almost like all 3 of us, I think one guy was going to hang on, but all 3 of us were saying the same thing.
I learned the riddle thing from Call of Cthulhu. Because in Call of Cthulhu, there's a lot of subtle clues, and you got to slam them right into the player's head. Otherwise, they end up like, we don't know where to go.
Yeah.
And then nobody's having fun anymore, right? So when somebody goes into the room, you can't have the secret note hidden underneath a drawer, of a basement, blah, blah. No, you got to have, you look under the bed and there's a note. Oh, cool. And then they can read that note and go on to the next part. You just actually, Seth Gorkowski did a great video about that.
Yeah.
About
you gotta have multiple ways to find your clue. If you have one way, they're gonna miss that every time. So you gotta have 2, 3 ways for them to find a clue.
That's exactly what he said.
Yeah, challenge should never lead to a frustration. Once you hit frustration, you're wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Especially if you got a bunch of guys in a group with Tommy guns, just dying to use them on something. You need them to find clues because it's, you
Otherwise,
don't need a bunch of guys in the middle of Arkham with Tommy guns bored. That's not a good turnout,
nothing good's coming from that.
But Ducato's 100% right. Every clue should be 3 different ways to get to the next part. Because, and D&D players, hell, I've probably even been guilty of it, making some stupid little puzzle that I thought was super easy, like turn the left statue this way and the right one this way, and the gate will open, and then the players are like pissed off, and you just gotta be careful about that. That's all. That is all. That's a nice beard, by the way, Ducato.
Thanks.
Yeah, mine's short now. I shaved mine, so it's short now.
My wife would like me to shave mine, but it ain't happening.
Yeah, mine hates mine too, but I've had it for 20 years, so or 15. So.
Well, I tell her I spend over half my life being told how I could have my facial hair, so that doesn't happen anymore.
Same. I mean, when I was in the Army and then when I was a firefighter, I always grew the big porn mustache like Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
Because you can get away with that, but because, you just need your mask to seal your SCBA. Mm-hmm. But as soon as I got retired out of there, I was like, shave? Why?
Yeah, we had a little bit of facial hair.
Towards
the end of my career, right? We could have. But then COVID hit, and we got issued masks, and they were like, at first they were like, you got to shave, and then we shaved, and then we started growing them back, and then I remember going into a fit test, and I had a goatee, and I had 2 guys doing the fit test, and one guy was cool, and the other guy was a dink. And the guy that was a dink was like, you're never going to pass this. And he was giving me a hard time about my goatee. And I was like getting close to retirement. So I was like, I don't care. It's not going to happen. So, and then I passed the fit test and he was all upset.
Yeah. My only issue with shaving was, in the military, I used to have to shave. I used to get like the 5 o'clock shadow at like 3. You know what I'm saying? It was like, shaved at 4 a.m. And then by like 3 o'clock, had to shave again. So I ran into this one, and this was by the time I got to my reserve unit. And I had this one staff sergeant. He was a motor sergeant. And he had a shaving profile. You know what I'm saying? So he had a shaving profile. So he did not have to shave, but he used to, private, come on over here. It was like, you got to shave again. You got to shave again. So at the time, I would listen to him and everything, and I wasn't in his section technically. I was with the S4, so I went and shaved, a second time, and my neck was so raw that it was actually bleeding, and then the next day, I think he came looking for me around the afternoon to see, and he told me again, you got to shave, and I told him, I was like, Sergeant, and it was like, he said, that doesn't matter. You have to shave. You have a shadow. You can't have a shadow. So I refused. I was like, I'm not doing that. I says, we're in the field, and this is, this I think is going to be detrimental. What? You're telling me you're not? No, I'm not doing that. I says, take it up with my section sergeant. My section sergeant, because this was a brigade. My section sergeant was a master sergeant. That was the next highest rank. Between me and him, what was the next highest rank, and so he went into my section sergeant. And when my section commander, who was a lieutenant colonel, caught wind of this shit, he was like, because he kind of commanded over the motor department. So it was like, I'm going to let this say, but he was like, you tell that staff sergeant to stay the fuck away from my driver, because it was his driver. Stay the fuck away from my driver. He has any issue, he has to come to this section to deal with this stuff. And that kind of ended it right there. But that just got me to the point that I was like, I would never grow like a beard in or anything. I had the mustache for a while, but to keep it Army regulations, it looked like an Adolf Hitler mustache. It was like, I was like, I'm not gonna keep that. But
Yeah, I never did the mustache thing, but I did the goatee thing when we started being able to have facial hair, and then
yeah,
after I retired, I just stopped cutting it.
yeah. No,
My
I
unit,
won't. I
we
won't.
weren't allowed to have facial hair, and we had to have hind tights. So
Yeah. Well, that was always the case. You had to have
that was the thing, because some units, like on the support side, they let you grow your hair like 1 3/4 inches long. Or there's some code, but not 3-7 infantry now. That shit better be high and tight and no facial hair at all.
One time I got pulled over by a cop speeding to my my place, my base. And so he pulled me over. I was in the HOV alone in the HOV, flying like doing like 75, 80 in the HOV. So he pulls me over, and I was in uniform, but he was like, why are you driving so damn fast? I was like, look at my hair. I says, I have to get a haircut on the way into my unit before my first sergeant sees this. I was like, so I'll take the ticket, but I'm still staying on the HOV and I'm still going. And he just released me. But I was like, yeah, I got to get out there and get a haircut. Then I can go in and sit in that first formation. I was like, holy shit. So yeah, the haircuts and the shaving was just something I've always tried to maintain, even though I've been out since '99 and I've had no other reason, other than just having that ingrained in me that I won't let my hair get too long, and I start feeling it once it starts touching my ears.
Yeah, still grow it. I got my top there. I need to shave it actually.
Yeah,
that's what I do. Is when my head starts to sweat, I just shave it, like with no guard.
Yeah.
Sometimes I leave a little on top, but usually I just go. And then I feel good for a while, but my wife hates it. But
Yeah. My wife would hate a beard. My wife would never let me grow a beard. She would lose her mind. Well, plus my beard comes in 3 colors, so it looks fucking weird.
I got 2.
Yeah, no, mine comes in red, which was like my original hair color from when I was a baby. You know what I'm saying? It comes in red, brown, and gray. So I'm like, so it just looks weird, when I grow in a beard. So it's like I can't go more than a few days without shaving, and then I just tell my wife, I was like, I got to give my face a little rest. So anytime I can go a couple of days without shaving, I do.
My Hungar, my brother, he's like that. He had brown hair, and it always got real kinky. So in school, he always had the Jufro kicking. But his beard would be blood red. It was like, I don't know why, but some people that's just the way they are. No,
I was originally born with red hair.
I was that way. I had mostly blonde hair, but if I grew a beard, it was red.
Yeah. Me, I couldn't grow facial hair until I was 25.
Yeah, my hair was red until I was probably like 2, and then it started turning more brown than red. But it always came in red first.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen Trail of Cthulhu, Paul, but if I want to know anything about Call of Cthulhu, I just watch Seth Gorkowski's 200-part series on how to play Call of Cthulhu. Because that dude, he broke down Traveler, Mongoose Traveler, in his 20-part video. He broke down every single chapter and how to do every single thing. And it's fun to watch anyway. So yeah, I like that guy. He's a good guy.
Yeah,
but,
Jeff, as you get older, it starts. First of all, your eyebrows will my eyebrows turn blonde. So you don't even see them anymore. And so it looks like I shaved my eyebrows off, and then it starts growing out of your ears now all of a sudden. So yeah, as you're getting older, your hair is just like all fucking crazy. It doesn't follow any.
This guy's looking like Pink from The Wall with his eyebrows all shaved off and shit. I don't know. I'm trying to think of other things to say about the magic system, but it's like,
No, I think I've pretty much, I think I've pretty much decided the way I'm going to go, and that is to use Shadow Dark's magic system as
okay.
is, you know.
Yeah, because I want to be responsible for disrupting the conversation. I mean, I know Professor Dungeon Master uses normal Vancian, but he makes people roll, and if you roll one, your spell fails.
Yeah, well, that's
And that's
basically
just it. Roll a die 20. Oh, one, it didn't work. But he's
yeah,
weird though.
but
His
Shadow
character
Dark, it
rolled like
doesn't work
24.
below your target number. So it fails, and then you have to wait until the next day to get it back again.
Right.
So the game's a little bit more strict than his. That's where I was going with it, right? Well, it was like you only lost it if you rolled a one if
Mhm.
for a first level spell, a two or a one for a second level spell, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And doing that, it was just, again, I think it really just boiled down to a player exploiting the spell, and that just becoming a big issue. And again, it was the problem with that one player figuring out, hey, I'm going to just cast invisibility on myself and just always looking to be invisible and never and becoming
I think it definitely was that. And then also compounding it was the way that spell is written for Castles and Crusades, is where there's no duration. Like as long as you
there's
don't do
no
certain
duration,
things,
there's no concentration requirement, because that was the other thing I tried to say. Well, you know what? Because when I read that thing where various systems do have, like, you have to concentrate on the spell, and anything can break the concentration, and taking damage can break the concentration. You have to you have to check to see if you make a Constitution check, to see if you broke it. You broke your you broke your thing when taking damage, and he was opposed to everything that would get rid of the spell. Other than him doing not just casting a spell. To him, it had to be an offensive spell being cast. All right. Where other editions say, no, you cast any spell, you break,
right?
Replacing the concentration for that spell with another, you have to lose the spell effect.
I would have to dig my book out, but the way I seem to remember it saying in OSE is like, if you use invisibility, the only thing you can do is move at a walking pace. Like
Yeah, I
you
was
can't
looking at other
interact
things
with
like that too.
anything at all,
Yeah.
or it will break the invisibility. Like if you say something, you turn a doorknob, anything.
Yeah, officially, let's see. Let's bring up that.
At least that's how I remember it. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up that spell officially and just read and see what it says, because it doesn't.
Well, I mean, hey, if you need to sneak away from something, I mean, that's a good way to go, I guess.
Yeah, but it's not like. So let's find it.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I want to see if they attack or cast a spell, the invisibility is broken.
Yeah. So I might have even been being tougher on my players than I should have been, because my rule was if you interact with the environment at all, if you pick a rock up, turn a doorknob, anything, it breaks.
In OSE, it's also permanent unless you violate the things in the descriptive text that break invisibility.
Huh.
But it's a little bit different than CNC, whereas CNC it's basically any attacking type thing. So you can't
so
cast
weird.
invisibility without breaking it, which it's always kind of been that way, because that's what you had improved invisibility for, because then you could cast spells and stuff.
All right, so here, so I'm reading it now. So it says the recipient of this spell, including all their carried item, vanishes from all forms of natural sight, and including dark vision, deep vision, and twilight vision. Any item that leaves the visible creature's person becomes instantly visible. Items collected by an invisible creature becomes invisible. Items carried that extend beyond 10 feet from the visible creature becomes visible past the 10-foot mark. Anyone who sees the item cannot help but notice that it appeared out of nowhere. Light as cast by a torch, lantern, or magic spell is not cloaked and remains visible, appearing as a vague but noticeable aura. The subject is not silenced, and noise can render the recipient detectable, and as can other common sense factors. Stepping in a puddle. Any attack on an invisible creature breaks the power of the spell. Any attack by a right. This includes physical attacks, spells, or use of spell-like abilities directed at a foe that causes damage of any type. Casting a spell requires the caster's combat action for the round. The spell is touched. The duration lasts until the individual attacks. That's the problem with it, is that it lasts for as long as they don't attack. It lasts for forever.
And the OSC version is different because you can't cast any spells without it dropping. So
yeah. So that's the problem with it, was that it's just it has now it does say other common senses, so they can smell you, they can do all of that, and
you're not silent either. Like
you're not silent, and if you're carrying a light source, it can see it. If you're if you're hanging from a rope, they can see beyond the 10-foot part of the rope. So all of a sudden they're going to see, rope extending above you by 10 feet and possibly below you. And all they're seeing is a missing rope on a 2-foot diameter section. They're going to know that someone is there.
Be like, how long is that staff?
Yeah.
You just see the staff.
Yeah, well, staffs aren't 10 feet long, but if you have the 10-foot pole, I guess if you're extending it at any amount, they'll be able to see some little stick pointing out of nothing.
Right. So it turns out, I guess, guys, I'm a little bit more hardcore about it. Because my deal is, if you do anything other than walk, it's done. And maybe I could remember that from AD&D or something. I don't know.
Now, what I was saying was that you can, you can't run at a full pace. You can't do, you can't be under like a haste spell and moving twice your distance, and it's going to kick up so much, debris on the ground that they're going to see that. They're going to know someone's moving, under that. So, Dakota, you have a good one. Yeah, I'm going to wrap this one up because I think that we've pretty much come to the conclusion that
you're going to do your thing.
Me, Shadow Dark is the way to go.
There you go.
Magic system is the way to go.
There you go.
Yeah, we can all hold it up there and say, this is the way. This is the way to go.
The next game I'm running is Marvel 616. So,
I have that.
Yeah, I kind of like it, and my players have made characters, so whenever we decide to start, we will. And
wait, didn't you say that you were running something else that you invited me to? It wasn't that; it was something else, right?
Right.
What were you?
While I'm not a superhero fan as far as reading superhero comics or anything, I'm thinking running a superhero game could be really fun because literally anything can happen. Like, a bank robber or supervillain could summon a T-Rex in the middle of town and control it to bust into a bank. And of course, all the interdimensional this, that, and the other things. And
no, I would definitely love to. I definitely love to, play in a game that you're running, especially something out of genre. Like, I have that, so I would love to. I would love to play that.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
That's a pretty cool system. That's a pretty easy system to play too.
It is.
Yeah.
And then the next thing we're talking about, which will be probably a long time after that, is Ashes Without Number, which is Kevin Crawford's post-apocalyptic game.
I didn't get that either. Yeah.
But I've decided that all the things he says in the book that could go wrong did.
Someone's going to be running WEG Star Wars.
Oh, that's such a good game.
Yeah, someone's going to be running that. I was like, yeah, well, if you're running that, I definitely want to play in that.
Yeah, that's a great game. It's so simple. Roll a handful of dice, add them all together. Did it beat a number?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, okay. But yeah, we're going to do Mad Max, Society Collapsed, Nuclear War, Mutants, Zombies. Everyone is infected with zombie genes. So if you die, you become a zombie.
Oh, cool.
Just pretty much all of the different scenarios he gives for the world ending. All of them. Oh. So. But anyway, I'll catch you guys later.
Yep.
Hey, James.
Thanks for joining. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. And
I did.
Thanks for those that jumped on in. And as always, I look forward to seeing you on a gaming screen or at a convention sometime soon. And we will see Throw in Junkians, a Whopper Jr.
Dare to be stupid, right? I could do like Venger and throw in like banana people and strawberry people.
Yeah.
Various, fruit and vegetable people running around.
I'm sorry, Whopper, that you're jumping in just as we're leaving. So,
it happens so often.
It wasn't you.
But anyway, peace and love, guys.
Have a good one, guys. Have a good one. Take it easy.
See you.
Take it easy.